Hi, this is Bob the Duck, and you may remember the fact that if you saw my otaku video, you may remember the fact that one of the shows, the anime shows that I got into big, one of the first ones actually was Sailor Moon, and I just watched the Nostalgia Critic's Sailor Moon review. I put it in the irony quotes because of the fact that, for the most part, what he does isn't really reviews. It's just making fun and nitpicking and exaggerating things. Not to say he doesn't have a valid point about a lot of things, but I just want to go through a quick list, and I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. Firstly, he says that they reuse more animation than Hanna-Barbera. What's worse than reusing animation is when they do things like animate only the head on top of a static body, a body that's part of the background, where you can see a visible line between the neck and the head. I mean, that there's so much terrible animation throughout the most popular Hanna-Barbera shows that to compare that to this isn't even remotely fair. Now, I'll admit there's things like Johnny Quest and things like that where I haven't really followed them that much. And some of the newer Hanna-Barbera stuff, of course, looks better, but most of the newer anime looks better too, so now the next thing, the picture that she saw up on the poster, and like, oh, this looks just like you, so you're saying that it's, a fictional world, but it's actually, real, so, okay, the picture is a reference to the origin of the Sailor Moon story, which is Sailor V. Sailor V was a girl, well, it was very much like the Sailor Moon story, except that it was just one girl by herself. And that girl eventually joined the Sailor Moon cast as Sailor Venus. But that came before Sailor Moon, and then Sailor Moon came out when she wanted to make it a team thing. And they kind of ran concurrently for a while, too. The comics, I mean. But they never made an anime version of Sailor V, because Sailor Moon was just so much more popular. The skirts. Firstly, the outfits that they're wearing are basically one-piece swimsuits. So those skirts are less, flashing panties and more modesty skirts on swimsuits. Yeah. That's really all that you can say about that. I hear people making this complaint all the time, and it's asinine. There's no basis to it. If you really think about what it is, it's not. Okay, anyhow. Oh yeah. Why do they wait for all the bad guys wait for the transformation? It's not as if, Sailor Moon or anime is the only thing where this happens. This happens in movies all the time, where people will wait for the end of a monologue before they'll attack. They'll wait for this is a trope that, while not a realistic trope, it's a trope that's very, very common. I don't really like it. I think it's dumb, but what can you say? Beryl and Jadeite. Beryl is actually a type of precious stone, as is jadeite, not Jadeite. Jadeite is a precious stone. In fact, the names of all the villains in the first season are all named after precious stones. Beryl, jadeite, kunzite, well, actually, is it nephrite? I don't remember. And then the American version replaced kunzite with malachite, but that's another semi-precious stone, so it kind of fit in the whole scheme. I don't know why they changed it. I guess kunzite sounds too weird. I'm missing one, though. Kunzite. Zoisite. That's another semi-precious stone. So they're all named after precious or semi-precious stones. Running from a real fight. Well, firstly, of course, that lyric was only in the American version of the song, and the American song was really dumb. There's no need to use the show's title 20 times in a theme song. The original theme song didn't mention the show's title. Yeah. The exposed goodies. Well, I already covered that with the skirts. There wouldn't be exposing goodies any more than a ballet dancer would be exposing her goodies. the Penn Godzilla disguise thing, I don't think the point was that she could, well, I mean, they did say anything in the dub. I don't remember what the original one said, but the point wasn't that she was disguising herself so that people wouldn't know who she was. She was disguising herself as someone who was supposed to be where she was going. Like, she was disguising herself as a reporter, or she was disguising herself as, you know, someone who worked at the building that she was going to. It wasn't about, and I don't think it could change her body. Well, maybe it could. I don't remember. Anyhow, beam. I don't know what that was. I should have taken better notes. The PSAs, obviously, they were only in the American version. The formula, well, you kind of acknowledged later on, anyhow, that the formula changed. Okay, now the smarter and braver. Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah, she did become smarter. Sort of. I mean, it really didn't hit until the last season. The last season's where she really kind of grew into herself. But at the same time, as the that article on that Power Rangers website had also said, she was brave when she needed to be the most. For instance, when Beryl had collected all the energy from Italia to resurrect, and, you know, the sunspots were becoming more frequent and all those kind of stuff, and she was about to resurrect and take over Earth, and she was able to. Even then, I mean, it took the deaths of all of her friends to do so, but she eventually, you know, got the balls she needed to fight, and that brings up another thing. So the reason why I got into it, as I said before in my Otaku video, is because it has a sense of continuity. Now, if I'd watched the show from the first episode, it probably wouldn't have stuck with me as much as it did. But because I watched the last few episodes, and then I watched the first part of the Doomtree arc, which, of course, which is actually was created for the anime, it wasn't in the comics. But there was a sense of continuity. The story continued from one episode to another, and that was something that I never saw in you know, cartoons up to that point. And when I would watch cartoons in America, they never had stories that just kept going. This had something that most American cartoons didn't have, and that was continuity. And that really is a draw. You know, I think people who are used to the American TV system, pre-24, pre-Lost, you know, they're used to things being episodic, but I like stories that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that connects, you know, that the best stories can't be told in 24 minutes. And that's why I like the fact that it goes on longer. And so it's not, the formula that you mentioned isn't what made the show popular. Part of what made the show popular you did bring up, of course. It's, you know, ever so eloquently with the talking body part scene. But part of what made the show popular was that despite being rather weak by today's standards, especially compared to a lot of other anime, you know, it still had something that American cartoons didn't have. And I'm not talking about the supposed sexualization. I'm talking about the continuity. So you can't. I don't think it's. People just, you know, discount it because they don't get it, and because they don't, you know, and it's even clear that, with the exception of some things like researching Neptune and Uranus, that he hasn't watched very much of it. He hasn't watched past the Jadeite arc, because even in the first season, Jadeite's not the only bad guy, but the show does indeed change ever so slightly over time, and there's a progression to it, and there's a goal to get to, and they reach the goal, and that's something you just don't see. You didn't see in American cartoons back then, and that's why the show was so special. Anyhow.